Welcome. This is Samantha Skelly, and you are listening to the Hungry for Happiness podcast, where we dig deep and discover how to reconnect into your body, heal your relationship to food, and finally feel the liberation and freedom you desire. Kleenex is encouraged, and pants are optional. What's up, Phoenixes, and welcome to episode 003 with Philip McKernan. Gosh, for those of you who've been in my community for a while, you know that Philip is one of my mentors and one of my coaches, a man that I respect so much because he's had such an impact on my life, not only as a person, but as an entrepreneur as well. This episode is all about truly uncovering your authentic self. And I know the word authentic and authenticity gets thrown around a lot, but Philip has a refreshing, amazing, direct way of really talking about it, and the fear behind being authentic and connecting to our truth. The way he describes this in this episode is just incredible, and I'm so excited for you to dive into it. Philip is an international speaker, author, filmmaker, and it's been said, enlightened hooligan, and I'll totally agree with that, who coaches entrepreneurs and business leaders all over the world. Philip helps those seeking clarity about their future and to move through roadblocks, seen and unseen. His most recent film, entitled Give and Grow, helps people uncover, understand, and unleash their gift in the world. Philip has also decided to gift this to our community, which is beautiful. So watch out for the link for that at the end of the show. Dig in, and I hope you enjoy this episode. What's up, Phoenixes, and welcome back to the Hungry for Happiness podcast. I am so stoked to do this interview. And in no way do I want to stroke your ego, Philip, but there's two people that I recommend my clients to check out their work. You are one of them. The other one is Kyle Cease. And so this interview is I'm just excited to have a conversation with you. You've ripped me apart a couple times, and not many people can do that. And I really admire your work and what you're doing in the world. So thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate it. You're very kind. I don't know how the hell I'm going to be able to live up to that kind of expectation, but let's see what happens.
We'll see what we can do. So first question is, what do you feel is the number one thing about life that makes you feel most alive?
What's possible for people. I'm going to cry already. I just see so many people that they just don't see and don't want to see, which is actually really frustrating, how powerful they could be. And I don't mean powerful as in running a country, creating a war, whatever. I'm talking powerful in terms of the context of their own skin, in terms of the impact they could make as a mother, as a father, as a son, as a daughter, as a community leader. And the thing that just stirs me so deeply is when you can get somebody or help somebody uncover and see their inner beauty and create an environment and challenge them to bring that outside and just to stand back and watch that happen is just beyond belief for me.
And I've seen you do that live at your One Last Talk. And actually I went to two One Last Talks, the both Vancouver ones. And you have this way of really cutting the shit and getting to the core and really illustrating to people, this is who you actually are. And I personally haven't seen anyone do it quite like you do it. There's a level of compassion, but there's also a level of fierceness with your work. So what is it? How do you create that for people, for them to just be open up so quickly? You can make a grown man cry in about 30 seconds. And I have yet to see that.
I'd love to tell you it's all me. I've got some magic powers. I've got some ability that no one else in the world has. Quite frankly, there's two parts to this actually, and I've never been asked that question in that way before. So I think there's two parts that kind of come up for me straight away. Is number one is, for those of you who are watching, if you're not watching, I'm using my hand, and people have got to lean in at least 50%. So there has to be a desire at some level. So people often say, I'd love to do your work, Philip, but I'm scared of you. Or two is they shoot the messenger, which is me. And so they can therefore just discredit the message. And a lot of people say, I'm scared of you. I don't want you to make me cry. I don't make people cry. I create environments where I help people get in touch with who they are, the emotion therefore then sometimes comes out of them. That's not me making somebody cry. That's me creating an environment. I think a lot of us are really deeply afraid of our individual truth. We're so afraid to uncover who we really are on this earth because we don't know what that's going to look like, or to some extent we have a sense of what it's going to look like. And the power of running the risk of being like truly happy doing something you really want to do is more scary than running the risk of failing every day doing some shit that you don't want to do, because that's more socially acceptable. That's kind of, I can handle that. But what if I unlocked what I am here to do on this earth, my purpose, my passion, my gift, whatever you want to call it. And what if I ran the risk of stepping in, being happy doing that? So to me, I think it's two things. Number one is people willing to lean in part of the way. I can't work with somebody who's sitting back with their arms crossed, doesn't want to do the work. And secondly is, as much as my ego does not want me to say this, I think partly is, it's not me, it's actually coming through me. And I know that might freak out some people and scare some people. I'm not religious at all. I don't believe in religion. I'm very spiritual in my own way. So I believe actually I'm just a vessel, I'm a conduit. If I have a gift, and I'm not the one to decide whether I do, I believe, and I said this recently, it's on loan until I start to abuse it or the day I die, and then it's taken away and given to somebody else. The challenge is lots of other people can do what I do. They just don't believe that they can do it.
That's super interesting. That's super interesting that you say that. I think that's a distinguishing point between you and a lot of the personal development people, is like you deeply believe that you can do it. And I want to ask you, why are people so terrified of their truth?
You know, I just think, I think they're so afraid. It's not even fear. I just think I think it's a case of not necessarily deserving it. So there's so many women, and it's not just a female thing. There's so many men and women, but particularly a lot of women who deep down, they're not conscious of it. They don't write it in their journal. They don't have it on their vision board. They don't even use the words, but deep down, they actually hold on to this, not just belief, but this knowing, this feeling that they don't deserve real love, for example. They don't deserve a real beautiful relationship that perhaps maybe, and you know way more about this, they don't really, they desire it intellectually, but they don't really feel that they deserve or that they can achieve a wonderful body. And I don't mean a perfect body. I mean a body that they would wake up and be proud of and love. So on and so forth. So I think sometimes we hold on to, and they're beyond beliefs. I mean, we talk about beliefs. It's like, it's beyond that. It's like a deep sense of knowing within ourselves. And I think sometimes we hold on to these pictures of ourselves, and self-worth is such a massive issue in the world today. And it's even more prevalent the more successful people come. It's even more prevalent with, you know, celebrities and public people and leaders in the world. So self-worth to me is that self-value, that self-worth piece is at the cornerstone of a lot of the blocks that I see people facing today in the world. Yeah.
And I find as well, a lot of people don't understand the concept of just internalizing our self-worth and just not having it dependent on something outside of ourselves, right? The most of the conversation is, I am worthy because I have a perfect body. I am worthy because I have this amazing boyfriend or this incredible job, or I drive this fucking awesome car. How do we shift people's consciousness to a place of like just allowing them to realize that they're worthy just because, just in their being, and not because of something?
Yeah, well, I think number one is we need to establish one very important piece. So a lot of people ask me, okay, how do you move from say here to here? And I go, okay, well, what is this first of all? What is the current reality? What is the current status? So the example I've just been using very recently, and I'm not sure if it makes sense, but you know, let's just say there's somebody comes to my door, meaning my work, and they say, listen, my wife sent me, my husband sent me, they think I have a problem with alcohol. I don't deal with alcoholics, by the way. I'm just using this as an example. Necessarily, although I have had a number of clients who are alcoholics, and through the work that we've done have recognized that at a deeper level. But they come to my door and they say, listen, my wife sent me. Just use this as an example. And she thinks I've got a problem with alcohol. So anyway, do your shit, McKernan, do your magic, and let's fix me. And I go, well, what do you think? And they go, about what? Alcohol? Well, no, I mean, I don't think I've got a huge problem. Anyway, let's get back to the work. Let's fix it. I go, but fix what? The alcohol thing. But you don't have an issue according to you. That's the point. So to me, it's establishing, as much as people don't want to do this, is one of the most important things for people is to stop and actually understand their current reality. And their current reality is not, hey, I'm in a job I don't particularly like and I want to pivot and I want to move. It's like, what is the cost of you doing this? What is the pain points? What is the emotional, the mental, what is the cost on your soul every single day doing something that you know you're not on this earth to do? And when you get in touch with that, here's the great news, is the pain that you get in touch with that pain, which is not a nice feeling. Oh my God, watch what happens to a human being when they get in touch with that pain. And they realize the cost, and they realize how selfish they are. So for example, you talk about the ruthlessness of Philip McKernan. I've got compassion like beyond belief, but there are times, and I had to work, I just shared this example this morning. I had a group of clients in a room in a coaching environment. I had two guys at the end of the table, and I went to one and I said, so what do you want to do? And he said, well, I keep getting caught up in my business and I want to write this book and I want to make an impact using this book. And I just said, great. So, but we've had this conversation before. And I said, tell me about the people who are going to benefit from this book and this concept. And he started to describe, what is the cost if you don't get to that? What is the cost for your soul and everything else? And he started describing in a very emotional way, not intellectual. We went beyond the intellect. And I just looked at him, and excuse the language in advance. I just went, you know what? Fuck all the people you're going to help. Fuck them. Let's just screw them. Let's just forget about them. And I go to the next guy. I said, next. And the next client looked at me and laughed, assuming I was joking. I said, no, not next. I'm not wasting any more oxygen on this guy. We had the same conversation. He doesn't really care about people. And he's too caught up in making sure his life is perfect. There's one thing, Samantha. Yeah. Everyone in the world wants to make an impact, number one. But almost all of us, let me share three little things that I think are really important, and hopefully this makes sense. Number one is we all want to make an impact. Number two is when you go down to the DNA, when you go down to the cellular level, when you go down to an emotional level, here's what I believe in my core. The help that we want to give the world is ultimately we want to remove or fast track the pain for other people that we ourselves experienced. Now, we may go out and help global warming, we may go out whatever, but if you want to go right to the core, every human being wants to prevent the pain they themselves experience for other people, or at least fast track it. But here's the problem. Number three, we want to look super fucking cool doing it.
Yeah.
So the ego needs to make sure, like, I want to make sure that my mom still loves me. I want to make sure that the world loves me. I want to make sure that I look good on camera. I want to make sure all the ducks in a row. I want to make sure my book looks perfect before it's launched, whatever. In other words, we want to make an impact. We want to fast track the pain or eliminate the pain that we ourselves experience for other people. However, the problem is we want to look good doing it. And that's the piece that if we get out of our own way and say, and you saw those One Last Talk speakers, the courage.
God. Yeah.
And the thing is, the mantra that I have for that experience is it's not about you. It's your story. It's you're on the stage. It's not about you. You share your story with the sole purpose of impacting one person in the audience. So if we can get out of our own way from an egotistical standpoint, fuck, the impact we can make in the world is so much bigger than we can imagine.
So huge. I even thinking about that experience at One Last Talk, like I get goosebumps and I could cry. It was profound because they weren't performers, and I know you worked on them like real hard, to really get out of their own way and just come from a place of service. And the quality of the presentation and how we can connect to those people is light years beyond anything else. Any other person I've seen on stage, I was just like I want to just like throw up after every single talk. It was profound. I find as well, and I want to ask you this, if you find this as well, so often some people want to not do the work on themselves and they just want to serve as a way of like spiritual bypassing and trying to like help themselves, but like help other people, but not actually do the work on themselves. Do you find that as well?
All the time. All the time. So we had, I'll give you an example. Obviously without names, but we've had one individual speaker, it doesn't matter who it is. And again, not to take away from them, they still stood on the stage, they still shared a story. But I remember afterwards saying to my wife, what do you think of the talk? And they said that she just looked at me, she says, I just didn't believe them. I just didn't. It was the only speaker we've ever had. And it's not that they're a bad person, not that we're being inauthentic, although maybe to some extent they didn't share their full truth. The thing is that they hadn't done the work. They hadn't done the real deeper dive. And there's a lot of coaches and speakers and teachers in this world that constantly refuse to do the work or tell themselves they've already done it. Oh, no, I've done that. No, I've done that. I've done that work. And to me, that is I think we have a moral obligation as parents in particular to work on our shit, irrespective of what the shit that we can see and the stuff that we cannot see. Yeah. So I had a coaching client on this morning, a friend of mine, and he comes on and saying, X marks the spot. This is what I want to focus on. And of course, shock and all, we end up going to Y. Yeah. Y really marks the spot. And of course, it has a huge, huge potential impact on X. He was determined that X was the problem. So to me, I think we have a moral obligation to continue to work on ourselves, particularly as parents, if we're going to teach and be a leader in this world, to work on the shit seen and unseen to make sure that we can serve people in ways that we can't even fathom to begin with.
I love it. It takes a sense of ownership. It's really interesting. We have at Hungry for Happiness, we have a certification program to certify people to become Hungry for Happiness coaches. And then we have our normal programs. And the amount of people that apply for the certification, I get on the call with them. I'm like, you're trying to bypass the work, y'all.
Yeah.
You need to do the work first.
Yeah.
It's super interesting. So I know the word like authentic or authenticity is like the latest buzzword and everyone loves it, but you have a way of describing it and teaching what it actually means. So I'd love for you to touch on this. And you share this concept in some of the talks that I've been to of like just really like taking off all the masks. There's like that visual that you put up on the screen with like the guy that goes to bed and there's like all these different masks on the wall. And I would love to talk about how do we start to really, number one, recognize like we're wearing those masks, and then being able to make the decision to shift and take off the mask and get closer to like our truth or our authenticity. Like let's kind of dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, well, if I could just backtrack a second, because, you know, I was invited to speak at a conference, a well-known conference that's delivered all over the world. And they rang me and they said, we want you to speak at one of our venues. And they said, what would you talk about? And I basically I submitted a talk called the Authenticity Code. I've done a talk called the Authenticity Code. It's a bit older, but it's on I don't know, 60, 70,000 views. So people obviously related to it at some level. And I submitted this and they came back, so authenticity has been done. And I said, I know it's been done. I know exactly that putting this forward, that's the type of response I get. However, my question is, how many people are actually doing it? I know it's been done, inverted commas, but how many people are actually doing it? So authenticity absolutely has. And then I believe the newer buzzword is now vulnerability. So people are standing on stage trying to be vulnerable because that's what the cool thing to do. But you can see that they have bypassed the work because they're sharing a personal story, but they're not connecting to the personal story. If you go back to one last talk, I know I'm jumping here, but if you go back to one last talk, what makes their talks unique is that they're not standing there with a particular posture. They're not staring at the crowd. They're not holding their hands. They're not using PowerPoints. They're just simply connected emotionally to their story. And therefore, that's why it's so powerful.
Yes.
So I was asked in an interview about 6 or 8 months ago, how did you become so authentic? And I said, well, you've made a huge fundamental mistake. And that is you're making an assumption that I am authentic. I'm more authentic than I've ever been in my past, but I'm only scratching the surface, which most people would expect me not to say that. So when people are looking, okay, what if I have a mask? So what if my masks were there? Like, what would they look like? What would they be saying? Like, why did I put them there? I think that's the wrong question. My assumption is I've got shitloads of masks on right now. I just assume they're there. Yeah. And I don't become complacent. I become really aware that they're there. Then I start to work with them, and then I start to take them off. And I think we start wearing masks from a very early age, maybe 10 years old in the playground to fit in. And then we get into this kind of habitual obsession of trying to fit in society. And we keep trying to fit in. You think about it in the context of young women, tall young women is the example I sometimes use. What they do is they start to crouch over in school and they start to bend over and they crouch. Of course, they regret later in their life for posture reasons and everything else. And they do it not because they don't want to stand out. We don't want to stand out in the world. For 37 years, I tried to be anybody other than myself. Anybody. Because I desperately wanted to fit in. Now, all I want to do is stand out. And I don't mean I just want to stand out for standing out's sake. I just want to be me. Yeah. But I've had 35, 37, 40 years of schooling in a society that doesn't want you to be different, that doesn't want you to change, that wants you to be the same. And it's all about de-schooling, decluttering, de-masking. Yeah. To me, authenticity is simply, just showing up as much as you can as yourself. The problem is there's an identity crisis in the world and most people have no idea who they are at the core. They just don't. They've never done that work.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm super curious, and I've heard you share the story before, but I haven't actually asked you about it. You're quite a late bloomer, right? Like getting into this work after 37 years old. Like what was the catalyst for you to be like, I need to do this work. I need to figure out who Philip McKernan is at the core. What happened there?
Yeah, I think I deep down secretly, I have a strong, not just belief, but a feeling and a knowing that everybody knows what they want to do in this earth. So if there's somebody listening today that says, okay, this all sounds great and it's all fluffy or whatever, it's amazing, it's inspirational or it's shit or whatever. But here's the problem is I don't know what I want to do. And I disagree. I think they know exactly what they want to do. I knew deep down in my heart, my soul, I knew what I wanted to do, but I was just so scared. I was so fearful. I was so inadequate. I had such self-worth issues and confidence challenges that I didn't believe because I had no education. I couldn't read and write. So I was dyslexic. So there was all these things telling me intellectually that you can't do this, McKernan. You cannot do this. And society along the way kept validating that. Teachers telling me how stupid I was, that I was going to amount to nothing, et cetera, et cetera. And then somewhere along the line, I was told a story that I chose to believe. So I take responsibility that when you become financially free, when you have enough net worth, then you can have the freedom to do what you want. When you become an entrepreneur, then you're going to be free. And I cannot tell you how many entrepreneurs I meet every day that might have the ability to cut a check and buy a new Tesla, but they don't feel free in their souls. They've built a bloody prison around themselves and they don't feel free. And I love working with those people to kind of help them really create real freedom in their lives. So I felt that I needed to build a real estate or investment portfolio in order to give myself the freedom to do what I wanted to do. The economy fell off a cliff in Ireland, which was the best thing that ever happened to me. I didn't say that at the time. And the pain, I got down to $200 at one point. And my wife looked at me and said, I'm not going back to Canada. I was living in Canada at the time. She says, it's not working. The real estate thing is not working. And I looked at her and I said, okay, I'm going to do this coaching thing. I have to do it. And I put an email out and I had one guy email me, and I swear to God, I don't know why I say, excuse my language, because it's too late now anyway. But this guy just said, about fucking time. And I wrote back and I said, what do you mean? He goes, I've been waiting for 3 to 4 years for you to finally do what you and I both know you're on this earth to do. And he says, I'm in, I'll work with you for whatever the time. I said, but you don't even know how much it is. He says, it doesn't matter. So that was how it started. So to me, I'd love to tell you it was some beautiful, big, incredible vision that I had, that I executed meticulously, that I worked on my habits. I meditated every day. I sucked Korean ginseng. I did whatever. And I had this magic formula. It was a combination of stumbling, falling, and finally the universe slamming me in the face and saying, you are absolutely settling in life. And for me to get in touch with that pain was the beginning of doing what I'm doing now.
That I love it. Thank you for sharing that. You talk about pain a lot as this like beautiful catalyst for like growth and transformation. And from what I gather, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's what you believe is like truly the pinnacle of transformation and being able to pivot in our lives. Do we need that like great pain or that great like big catastrophic thing in our lives, or can we just shift through knowledge? Like, what is it? I'd love to like kind of get your insight on that.
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. I mean, I think we can shift through knowledge, but I think knowledge, the problem with knowledge is that, you know, we're in the information age, and I think that has to change. And I think we need to move from a place of consuming information to moving to a place of knowledge, but then going beyond that and bringing that knowledge and creating wisdom from it. Again, another sadness in this world today is that there's so many people that are out there, absorbing copious amounts of information, some of which is great and some of it which is not so great or whatever. But where's the wisdom internally? Like I know I saw an article 6 months ago or 8 months ago about, you know, what successful people eat for breakfast. And it's almost implying that if you eat what Richard Branson eats for breakfast, you can be Richard Branson. It's like, what the fuck? Like, is that the world we live in today? That people, I want to know, what is your vision of the world? Yeah. What is the wisdom that you have? What is the world that you would love to create? What is the dream that you have? Draw that out of people, suck it out of people, uncover it out of people. It's not finding it somewhere and helping them create that vision. But pain can be an incredible, none of us want to experience pain. So that is one of the challenges. But the other thing is that I think our purpose is contained within the pain. It is our purpose. I believe that our purpose in this earth is to basically, in some shape or form, to leave some sort of impact in this earth, some sort of fingerprint in this earth, some sort of, just legacy. I know that can be sometimes egotistical, but it's some type of legacy where we impact the world. And I don't believe there's any more authentic way to impact the world than impacting the world through the lens of your own personal narrative, your own personal story. And your own personal story contains pain. One of the challenges is, let's just say, use a societal extreme, if you like, so depression or sexual abuse or something. People think they need to have had something dramatic in their life in order to have a story. And I meet so many people say, yeah, no, my childhood was great. I mean, as a kid, it was so fantastic. And I go, really? Well, either you're so numb or you just so don't want to see the pain, to find out subsequently, actually, they did have a lot of pain. They had a lot of pain. And my story is the most important story in the world because it's my story. And the problem is, if I compare my story to somebody else's, all I'm doing is playing down my own. So to me, getting in touch with the pain that I experienced really allowed me to understand who I was at the core and what I'm in this earth to do. How I do it is different, but ultimately what I want to do is fast track you talked about late bloomers. I want to make sure that people don't wait too late in life. I want them to uncover who they are, what their gift is, impact the world, whether it's their own family, their own community, or the world, way faster than I did. So ultimately, I'm doing the same thing as I've just talked about.
I love that. And that's part of my call. For those listening, I'm joining Philip in Ireland in June for, what's it called? Brave Soul? Brave Soul. And I'm super excited for that, because you are so good at extracting people's stories, illustrating the pain and showing them what it's costing them. Because right now, I have no fucking clue. I don't know. I'm probably wearing 5,000 masks. I have no idea. And I'm super excited to just, go 50%, lean in, meet you 50%, and just like see what is there. Because I know I'm 27 now, and I know what I'm building right now, it requires a better version of me, the best version of me to come to the table and like really create this movement that I know the world truly needs. And I'm excited because you know how to just really take people's stories out.
Yeah. And here's the thing is people, we're using the word pain and people are going, Jesus Christ. And then you said, I nearly wanted to vomit after everyone. Thanks, by the way, thanks for the plug and the advertising. And no one will ever go to a one last talk event. But here's the other side. It's great. Here's the other side of this is beyond the pain is magic that you can't even believe. And yes, I'm using the word magic, not magic and voodoo and, pulling rabbits out of a hat, but this sense of connectiveness, this sense of belonging, the sense of letting go, the sense of identity, the sense of knowing. The one word that I love is, and I don't want to create an expectation because you just mentioned you're going to Ireland, is that people typically leave Ireland with a sense of knowing, not I know it all, but just I know. I just know. It's not a case of, do I believe this? Do my values align with this? Do my goals align with this? Does it's just, I just know. And if you build from that place, but you can think about it, people are walking in the world. So many people saying, if I could just find out what I want to do and I'm happy, if I could just discover what I want to do when I grow up, if I could just uncover or discover or find my passion, which almost implies it's behind a rock somewhere in a mountain, then I'd be happy. But like what a lot of people are missing is the first most important thing is understanding, not just intellectually, but emotionally, who you are. When you discover who you are or uncover who you are, what you're here to do becomes a natural evolution of that. In other words, it's not about some epiphany or aha. It's just like, shit, this is who I am. This is my story. This is my pain. Oh my God, I can't not do this. So to me, the greatest work I ever did as a man, as a human being on this earth, as a father, as I was ever, and I still got shitloads of work to do, was understanding my story at a level that I'd never, ever comprehended it before. And when I did that, the work that I'm on this earth to do became a natural extension of that. Challenges people don't see the value of my story. Like go away in a retreat and understand what are you talking about? I know my story. I grew up in Illinois. I now live in Vegas. I'm a fireman. I'm a this, and that's not your story. That's what you do. It's not who you are. So the identity crisis in the world that is absolutely showing up in the U.S. military. It's showing up with housewives and mothers and fathers and everything else saying goodbye to their kids, losing ourselves in what we do as opposed to who we are in our businesses. So when our businesses are taken away, sold, or fall apart, we get deeply depressed because our identity died with it. And so on and so forth. So understanding who we are intellectually and emotionally is probably the most important level of self-awareness on this earth, and yet one of the most overlooked pieces.
And understanding that we have the power and ability to create that identity for us in any, like we are storytellers, we're meaning maker, like we make meaning out of anything. So if there's an identity that and correct me if I'm wrong here, but what I gather from what you're saying is we can realize that there's an identity or there's something that we want to become, and we can decide and we can own that and come into that, rather than this inherited story that we've had from our childhood. Is that kind of what where we're going?
So today, let's just say I own a business and there's these patterns that constantly show up, whether it's on the ice or off the ice, meaning in my business or out of my business. And it's around relationships. So I keep sabotaging relationships. I keep attracting the wrong people into my life. I keep getting to a point where, financially I'm getting really successful. I'm just about to break through to the next level. And something happens outside of my control, apparently, that inhibits that or messes that up, or somebody stabs me in the back. But if I looked in the mirror, these are actual patterns that have been with me for a long time. And this is the value of going back into our past and understanding, okay, why does my relationship with money exist the way it does today? Why do the relationship patterns show up the way they do? The answer to that is not today. It's not in your toolbox today. It's not in what you believe today necessarily. It's where it comes from in the past. So some of my work, not all of my work, is going back and understanding what formed you, what made you who you are today, what molded you, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to who you are today. And therefore, and there's a big distinction in the word I'm going to use today, therefore we have influence around the future, not control. We can influence, we can influence the outcome in the future. We can rewrite the script in a sense, but we cannot control it. Our need to control and know blocks us and holds us down. But we cannot do that unless we understand the past. So in Ireland, this is the work we're going to be doing, and it's beyond magical because we tell ourselves stories. So, for example, if I did this very recently again, I just asked a group of people, said, just give me one word that describes how you feel about money. Feel, not think. Feel.
Got it.
And I asked just 3 people, and I literally tell you, I had love, hate, freedom, anger. Whatever, like 4 or 5 people, whatever in the row. I think about the extreme nature of that relationship to money. And one person hates it, so what are they going to do? Push it away. The other person thinks the more they have, the more happy they're going to be. They're also equally disconnected. And the other person feels that unless they have money, they're never going to be free. Like, what does that mean? That means that their freedom is determined by their bank balance, which is an absolute fundamental flaw, etc. All of that comes from their past. That doesn't come from hitting their head on a bench today, eating an ice cream or drinking a bad bottle of wine. It doesn't come from that today. It comes from your past. What was your schooling? What did you witness in your parents? What did you see go down at home that has imprinted so deeply on you? And does it serve you today?
Oh, God, that's so good.
And rewriting and influencing that script so the future doesn't turn out the way the past has and the present is today. People talk about living in the now all the time, and it's beginning to drive me mad because living in the now is great, but if your now is shit, if your now is not so cool, if your now is depressed, if your now is you're not in alignment, you're not doing what you're on this earth to do, I don't want to live in the now. I don't even want to live in your goddamn now. But the future is the past has created the past has created the present, and the present is creating the future. The most important work I have ever done as a man on this earth is understanding my past. Not living in my past, not consuming myself and wallowing in it, understanding it, learning from it, moving forward, saying, looking at my reality and then influencing the future.
Okay, this is money, because the majority of my listeners and subscribers and community have issues with control. And the reason, and they have these deep-seated issues with control because they don't trust themselves, so they over-control, and then they control their food and everything's all controlled. So I want you just to touch on it one more time, like this difference between being in control and having influence over our future. It's genius. I've never heard of it like that.
So let me, I'm at home here right now, so let me just grab something here. So, excuse me, I'm going to grab a little soldier off the floor. It's one of my kids' little soldiers. And I'm going to use this as an example. Obviously, didn't rehearse this one, so we'll see what happens. There's a big, huge distinction between letting go and giving up in the world. And people think that, by the way, control is an illusion, okay? So the idea of controlling anything in this world. So where control shows up massively in this world is relationships. And look what's happening in the world of relationships, like intimate relationships. Look at the statistics around divorce in North America alone, right? And the statistics around divorce don't frighten me. The statistics about unhappiness in relationships that stay together scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And so statistically, people are screwed. If you're in a relationship right now that you think is working, you want it to work, you want it to keep going, but you think it's going to last, statistically you're screwed. And what's happening is science is now showing that we wait 5 years too late to work on the relationships. And what ends up being a hairline crack today, which is chalked down as a communication challenge, becomes a Grand Canyon in the future. I believe the same thing is prevalent in the context of our own relationship with ourselves, which is the most important relationship in the world. We wait 5-10 years too late to work on a relationship with ourselves. Like, who am I? What is my self-worth? What is my identity? What do I believe? What do I stand for? What do I know? Who am I? What am I here to do? Et cetera, et cetera. The challenge is in relationships, if you think about it, is this opposites attract. And you've probably heard me talk about this, is that to some extent, there's some truth in this. You see something in somebody that you don't see in yourself. You don't recognize yourself. They're more outgoing. They're more funny. They've got a great sense of humor. They're good looking. They're smart, whatever. And you get attracted to that part of them that you don't feel you have, or you see in them. And this opposites attract. There's some truth in that. But then what ends up happening is we spend the next 5, 10, or 15 years trying to change that person to see the world like we do. We stop honoring their differentiator, their individuality. We use terms like, honey, I just want you on the same page as me. Doesn't that make sense? That's not, I want your individuality. That's it. I want you to see the world and believe the world the way I do. That too all about control.
Yeah.
We want to control our kids. We want to control, our business. We want to control our bank accounts. We want to control so much. And the analogy I use is not the soldier, obviously, but it's if that's let's just call it a bulb, like for a daffodil bulb. If I put a bulb in my hand and I squeeze the living shit out of it, like I am right now, you can see the vein, like I'm squeezing it. How's it going to do? Is it going to breathe? Is it going to grow?
No.
It's going to wither or die. It might eventually, maybe grow a little bit because of the sweat in my hand or whatever, but moisture's not going to get in, sun's not going to get in. And this is when we let go of stuff. This is what happens. What people say to me is, if I let go of my business, if I let go of my relationship, I let go of my, I've started to let go of my wife, not give up, but let go of saying, stop trying to control her. This is letting go. This is giving up. When I turn my hand over and drop it, that is giving up. The other thing in society as well is that, let's just stick with the analogy of the bulb. If I take this bulb and I bury it in the ground, one of the most frustrating, sad things for me is that I'll turn around to somebody and say, oh, you planted the bulb. So the bulb represents maybe momentum, some change in their life. And I turn and say, look what you did. And they go, oh, what? I planted, but nothing's happened. I said, no, look. And like a little green bud that comes through, through the soil. I go, look at the greenness. Yeah, but there's no fucking flower, Philip. No, but look what you've done. You've planted meaning, a business, an idea, a relationship. The bulb is just an analogy for life. Yeah, but look, it's growing. Yeah, but there's no flower. In other words, we're focusing on the perfect outcome, and we're using that as a way to berate ourselves, keep ourselves down, and therefore inhibit our growth as an individual. There's too many people holding on today so goddamn tight. And think they're in control. Control is an absolute illusion. The control, by the way, here's one for you. Control is driven by our need for what? Security. The more we yearn security, it tells me one thing: the more insecure we are.
Yes.
So people will use excuses.
Oh, that's good.
So what we should do is deal with the insecurity and our need for control. It's not a case of getting off this interview and giving people instructions. Say, oh, just stop controlling today. Use a mantra to stop controlling. Say no 15 times. Tell yourself, go and do what he wants. Play with a shovel, drive the car, and he's only 6 or whatever. It's not about that. It's about dealing with, why are you such a controller? Why do you squeeze the living shit out of everything? Why do you just squeeze the life out of everything? And therefore, it's that scarcity. Where does it come from? It comes from this need for security, which is driven by nothing other than insecurity. Nothing other than insecurity. And if people use things like, for example, time and money, it is never time. It is never money. They're the two reasons or excuses, never. And now in modern day society, we're using our kids. Oh, I'd love to take this risk. I'd love to build this business. But you know what? I've got 2 kids. And I said, great. Well, all I'd ask you to consider is, do your kids know that you're using them as a reason or an excuse not to grow as a human being? It's fine if you want to use them, but just let them know.
That's brilliant.
Hey, Johnny and Mary, just to let you know, the reason I don't step out and do what I want to do in this world is because of you guys. I just need to know that you know that, and that's okay.
Yeah. Because
what you'll find is, as a parent, for example, in 20 years' time, Johnny or Mary come back to you, and they're now 25 or 35. And they, hey, Mom, what do you think I should do in this situation? Which is something you're facing today. And what you'll probably say is, go for it. Live your dreams. Take a risk. But what'll happen is, if you don't live it, if you're not a living, breathing element of that in their lives ongoingly, what'll happen is it just becomes a lecture. And their reaction, externally or internally, is like rolling their eyes, going, yeah, okay, Mom, yeah, Mom, I hear you, Mom, yeah, Dad, whatever. Where if you do this, what you're going to do is inspire your kids, so that conversation doesn't even need to exist in 20 or 30 years from now.
Oh my God. That was epic. That was epic. And you kind of brushed on this whole concept of perfectionism. Perfectionism and control are very linked, aren't they?
I think they're kind of almost the same thing.
They're two of the same, aren't they?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Like this black and white thinking, like the world does not dance in the gray. It's black or white all the time. And breaking that and knowing that, like, we're allowed to fuck up. We're allowed to get messy. We're allowed to experiment. A lot of the women that I work with and men that I work with just don't have no concept of that, because perfectionism to them meant, I am loved. I will be loved if I am perfect, which is, their parents doing a number on them. So it's super interesting and fantastic that you just touched on that.
Well, if you bring that back to some of the work I do, and you talk about letting go, and letting go with the client that I was supposedly obnoxious to, whatever, which is like, great, I don't want to waste any more oxygen in this. There's probably one of the most powerful things I've done in the coaching capacity in the last number of years. And it's not some strategy. It's not some creative, cool strategy that I think was like reverse psychology or any of that. It's just my truth. It's just like, okay, great. You're not ready to let this go. You're not ready to grow right now. You're not ready to see that what you're doing right now is causing huge pain for you. You're still holding on to this dream, this illusion, whatever. I can spend 6 months trying to extract this out of you, pouring tons of energy into you to try and convince you. And even if I do that, you're not going to have enough energy to actually pivot or change in your life anyway. So you know what? Let's just let it go. And that is letting go. So letting go of people, like letting go of your wife. So many of us in this world today are trying to change our partners. We're trying to change our family. And if we can let them go, and people go, oh, you mean like, just forget about this. No, because they're jumping to a conclusion that I've just said, give up on them, which I haven't said. I said, go. Focus on changing yourself. Focus on making sure that you're in alignment in the work that you do, the relationship with yourself and the relationship with other people. Work on those areas. And what you'll find is the people that you want change for so much, you want them to be happy or whatever, they'll knock on your door and go, Samantha, I just noticed something in you. Like, what are you doing? Like, what is that skin cream you're using? Or what is that water you're drinking? Or what are you sniffing? Or what work are you doing? Like, what's this energy around you? And they'll come to you. But if you're chasing them down, the more you lean in, the more you run after somebody, the faster they run away from you typically.
Yeah. It's not interesting. It's just like relationships, chasing the boy and he'll just run. No different than on the playground. We were younger.
Totally. And the thing is, I think we say that we want to help them, that we want them to grow and everything. I actually think it's honestly, we just don't want to take responsibility for our own lives. And we have the courage. We're not executing the courage to let go and to run the risk. Because think about it, all of our families want us to be happy. Honey, I want to be happy. But what they don't say is, honey, I want you to be happy, but just don't change.
Just don't change. Yeah.
Because your change, what it does is it actually, it creates this insecurity in me. It creates questioning in me about my alignment, my life and everything else. So a lot of us want our partners to change, to be happy. We just don't want them to change.
The word responsibility, I find, is a super interesting one. Like really taking responsibility. Like once we have like the awareness around something. So when you work with a client and you're like, bam, there's the awareness, what's going on now. It takes a level of responsibility for them to then step in that shoes and actually do something about it.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think like people are maybe this is that part of the reason why people don't want to find out their truth or they're terrified of their truth is because they actually are scared of the responsibility that it's going to take to do something about it.
Totally. I agree. And again, we're in a society where, and again, I don't really get into politics and I don't get into religion at all in my work, but the one thing that amazes me is how many people in this country, in the US where I now live, are like the amount of energy that they expel in politics and the amount of credence they give politics, the amount of they put politics on such a pedestal that whoever's leading this country is now like, oh my God, the fear, the whatever. And to me, it's like, I don't watch the news. I don't read papers. It doesn't matter what president is. Yeah. Maybe I'd prefer one president over another, but I'm not going to let it determine who I am. I'm not going to let it determine and dictate my life. I'm going to focus on the best version of me, continually removing all of those many masks that need to be removed to the day I die. I'll still be removing them. And I guarantee something will come out of my mouth the day that I'm taking my last breath, and something will prove to me yet again that I had another goddamn mask that took hopefully 97 years to figure out. But to me, it's about this, taking responsibility for self and your journey. So many people criticize my work and berate my work and judge my work. And 95% of those people or 98% of those people have never worked with me. They've never once worked with me. They've never done real work with me ever. Yeah. And they're blaming the politics. They're blaming the environment. They're blaming the economy. Just look in the mirror and just say, what can I change today that will change my world, the world around me, and therefore, by extension, everybody else, that comes into contact with that. I just think we're putting way too much responsibility on external forces, and we're not really doing the inner work that we need to do in this world.
Yes. That's huge. Yeah, we're afraid of it. We're afraid of change.
And women, I know a lot of your clients are female, and a lot of women hold on to this other really strong feeling that, deep down, they're not really going to be fulfilled and happy unless they find Mr. Perfect or Mrs. Perfect, like unless they're in a relationship.
Yeah.
And I would fundamentally challenge that
Mm-hmm.
a wonderful external intimate relationship can elevate your experience on this earth. It can enhance it. It can deepen it, whatever. But if you need somebody in this world to make you happy, you're screwed. And I'll tell you why you're screwed. Because what it's basically telling me is that your relationship with yourself is not at the point where you have enough self-love, self-respect that you can operate and be independent and be okay in your own skin. But here's the downside of this. If you believe that you need somebody in your life to be happy, what you'll do is you'll walk into that relationship and guaranteed, I've never said this before, so I'm literally making up, the higher your need for somebody else to prop up your happiness, the more you will ignore the blind spots, the more you will ignore the red flags, the more you will choose not to see the parts of misalignment in that relationship and that guy or that girl and step into a relationship. In other words, that you will settle on certain things because the relationship is more important than the connection and the alignment and the values and so on and so forth. If that makes any sense.
That makes total sense. I love that. I know that's going to resonate with a lot of women in my community, because that's something that comes up all the time. You know, we talk about relationships with food and body, but you know, relationships with others and the need to be with someone else, the wanting, the desire is always there. And when I use the word desire, it's not like that healthy desire. So I guess maybe the word isn't desire. It's like I'm coming from a place of lack, and it's like that Getty energy, which automatically says I am without that thing, right? Yes. Again, externalizing our worth, going back to that conversation of worth is outside of ourselves rather than internally. Oh,
I had a lady one day sitting in front of me in a workshop, and she was holding on to the story, and she, you know, which was a great indicator. She had told, you know, she basically shared the story with 7 different people before we even started the workshop about, you know, this boy or this guy who had basically devastated her, broken her heart, destroyed her. And yeah, when you hear the story, the guy was an ass. I mean, he did not treat her with a lot of respect, etc. However, she can continue walking through this earth, telling the story, having everybody around her say, God love you, and God, that was tough, and hugging her and saying, oh my God, you must be devastated and everything else. Or I can hit her with what I believe is my truth and her truth as well. It's like, great, okay, he was an asshole, brilliant. Now what? And by the way, did you see any red flags? She goes, absolutely none whatsoever. This came out of total blindsided, total. And I said, did you see any red flags? Maybe you don't want to see them. Maybe you don't want to remember.
There you go. Yeah.
But did you see any red flags? And I said, because this is so important. I would never bring somebody here unless I don't bring anyone anywhere unless I believe it'll help them. And you could see she started to vibrate with anger. Are you saying this is my fault? You know, jumping from one extreme to the other. I said, no. What I'm asking you is, did you see any red flags that you chose to ignore? And everyone, like people in the room were starting to look at me and go, Philip, I think you're just being an ass here. Like, did you not hear what happened to this woman? Like how she was so devastated and broken. I said, yeah, I did hear that. But what I know is, what's her part in this? Where did she choose to see or not see? Where did she ignore her intuition? And finally, with absolute vibrating anger and a degree of sadness, she said, I knew the day I met him, and I knew the day I was walking down the aisle. Then she went to this self-berating, absolute, immense personal judgment and everything else, which is the other extreme we don't want. But to get her back in the middle and say, okay, there is a part of you that chose to ignore it. There is a part that this guy was also an asshole. But like, what this will do is it'll equip you deeply for the future. So when decisions come up in the future, now you're aware that you have this thing inside you that you're so desperately in need of a relationship to prop up your happiness. You're going to blindly go into relationships and choose not to see the things that are huge red flags for you as a woman. Now you're empowered. Now you're equipped with that awareness. But before that, she was blind, and she had this beautiful victim story that she could play whenever she wanted to anybody who would listen and be validated, so she didn't have to take that responsibility.
There's that word again, responsibility. Yeah. And we earn for that, like the validation of our shit story while we're having a shit fit, for someone just to be like, it's okay. Poor you. Yeah.
I did it for years. I still do it. I still think I have those stories, and I still think I have the, you know, the dyslexia story, which is a huge part of my life, created a lot of pain and discomfort for me. I think I've let go of a lot of it. And that story was, oh, well, you know, of course I can't write a book, you know, and that's why I'm not as successful, because I'm not an author. And, you know, but how could I be? I'm not, I can't write. I can't spell. I can't really read. So, you know, and this was the story I was telling myself. And I remember one day, and it wasn't just people think like if you just say an affirmation out loud, it becomes real. I don't believe that. I think you have to shift emotionally in order to real change.
Totally.
Remember one day after years of working at this and looking at this and letting it go and then just walking away from it. And I remember one day just coming to this realization and saying these words, which absolutely moved me to the core. And that is, you know what? I can't spell, but by God, can I write?
Mm-hmm.
I can write. I can write. I just can't spell. I know I can't spell. I don't care. And just that freedom.
Yeah.
And the other thing is giving myself freedom not to remember names. So like when I walk into a party, you know, people say there's all sorts of tricks and that's great. I'm just not a guy that remembers names.
Yeah.
So rather than trying to convince myself.
Just own it.
And I just walk into parties and I go, listen, I just meet you. It's great to meet you. You've got a great energy. But you know, I promise you I will not remember your name. But I can tell you one thing. I will remember this conversation, what you wore, how you look for the rest of your life.
I love it.
Age in a different way. So I'm now honoring that part of me. I'm not shying away from it. That gap in my life or that weakness, which I don't believe is. All it is my soul, my body, my spirit saying, McKernan, you're not on this earth to remember people's names. You're not on this earth to spell correctly. You're on this earth for a different reason. And the thing is, when you're seeking perfection, this is actually really important. I've never when you're on this earth and you're seeking perfection, control, you're not honoring your gift. You're too busy trying to prop up the talent so the whole fucking picture looks perfect. They'll remember names and impact lives. Yeah. And in actual fact, what I'm doing is I'm impacting less lives.
Yes.
Trying to come up with the tricks and the tools and all this other shit. So what I'm doing is I'm executing my talents. I'm not honoring my gift, which is the film that we mentioned before we came on air. And that is, so when I don't get to the amount of people I could and move them in a way and uncover their gifts so they can go on and impact the world.
Oh, that's so good. So I guess like what we're really talking about here, just like inclusion, like owning the part of you that is not like performing at the level that you want to, and just be like, I love that part of me anyway. I'm going to accept that and I'm going to fully own that. And that then allows us to like include and transcend and focus our energy and attention on the things that we're actually kick ass at. I love that. I love it. I love it. Okay. So why don't we're getting to the end here. I know you got to run.
I'm just getting warmed up.
We could be on here all day. This has been super energizing for me. I quit coffee this week, but this conversation, I'm like, oh my God, I feel it. You're a filmmaker. You have a beautiful documentary called Give and Grow. Why don't you share with the peeps what that's all about?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to really just simply talk about it, I mean, I suppose it's based on a time in my life where giving in a particular way, unconditional giving, really helped me pivot in my life. And, you know, I think through the storytelling process, we went to India, we did a social experiment, we took a group of people to India to give unconditionally to see how they would grow exponentially. And through the lens of that journey, what ended up happening was what emerged out of it was the difference between talent and a gift. So a lot of us are walking through this earth, executing our talents, like writing software, being an accountant, whatever it happens to be. I'm not saying that either of those are disconnected, but we're not honoring our gift. And our gift is our unique ability to impact the world in a very, very emotional, real way. So if you're intrigued or open to the idea that your talent and your gift are two different things, well, then the documentary will probably appeal to you in a way. What we do is follow people through this social experiment in India, whereby we expose them to giving and then what they learned about themselves. So we then process that and how they pivoted in their lives when they came home. So it's called Give and Grow. And what we are going to do is give it away to your listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So giveandgrow.com/hungry for happiness. You can get the high definition documentary there. Thank you, Phil. That's super generous of you to offer that to us. Thank you.
And by the way, it's not a new, I mean, I shouldn't say this, but it's not like this some super unique message and something that's so radically different. I think what we've done is we've just simplified what I think is very important. And what we've done is we're just simply reminding the world of something that is so unique, so old, something that pre-exists well before Philip McKernan, but something that I think we're forgetting. And we think that giving now is writing checks to something. And trust me, money is important in the sense that we just built an orphanage with funds from people who supported it in Peru, and we need money. So, but I think giving is about giving of yourself, your spirit, your soul. The challenge is if you don't believe your story, if you don't trust yourself, you don't like yourself, well, then why would you give it over? Why would you help people through the lens of your story? And my mission on this earth is to help people not just understand who they are, but fall in love with the most important story in the world. And that's their own personal narrative. It is the greatest love story, the greatest tragedy, the greatest horror book, the greatest possibility story that has ever been fucking written on earth. My job is to get you to see that and then sharing that with the world to help the world in a way that maybe you just can't imagine right now.
You know, I love, did I hear, or did I read somewhere where you're taking one last talk and you're doing something different with it, where there's going to be more in other places, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's funny about fear. One last talk is something that I was kind of debating closing down last year, not
Mm,
because it wasn't making money, not because of this, not because, I think partly because I was so scared of it.
mhm.
And, I'm like every other human being in the world, despite what people sometimes say. I have my fears, I have my bad days, I have times where I question the shit out of what I do. And there's something very powerful about one last talk, but one last talk has to go beyond Philip McKernan. It has to me, it has this possibility, not financially, but not even economically, but like, from an impact standpoint. So the idea of one last talk is, and of course, without the plan, I shared it in my big mouth and I shared it openly one day publicly. But the idea is that we want to attract wonderful ambassadors who get the idea that the concept behind one last talk, the importance, and we want people to bring it to the world. And what we're going to do is support them doing that. So I'm working right now on a new book. We're starting this week, and it's going to be how to extract your one last talk. And then the idea is we'd have ambassadors in different parts of the world that will deliver it organically every 3 or 4 months in their city, and put people on the stage who have never spoken before, typically, to share their one last talk with the sole purpose of impacting other people around them and letting people know that they're not alone.
That's freaking awesome. I love it. It's a powerful event. I'm excited to see the growth and the evolution of that happening.
Yeah, we want more people to feel like puking up after they would.
Maybe I just have a weak stomach. I don't know. But I was like, oh my God, I'm going to throw up.
No, but I think what it means is, I think it stirred you that deeply. And rather than saying that as something that scares people and they shouldn't go to it, I see that as, we have what's called one last talk stories, or, talks that matter, that matter. We're not saying other talks don't matter. We want to I'd love to just finish with this if you don't mind. I know
let's do it.
I believe there's not going to be an evolution. I think there's going to be a revolution, and it's already started towards what I've dubbed as soul set, away from mindset is so overrated. It's important, but it's not as important. It's not even remotely as important as soul set, which is emotion, intuition, internal connection.
Yes.
And there's going to be this absolute revolution towards, I guarantee you, and it's already showing up in science. So science typically tells us, with respect to the scientists out there in the world, typically tells us and now validates what we've already known intuitively for a long time. And we are going to see books and research on this. And guys, sorry about that. We kind of had mindset on the pedestal next to traditional education, next to celebrities, next to money, and next to entrepreneurship. It's just not quite as important as we thought it was. This thing called emotion, and we're so obsessed with putting shit in a box and intellectualizing stuff that we can't even just allow emotion to be emotion. We now have to call it, what is it? The EQ, emotional, intelligence, like it's emotional intelligence is the term. We now have to put a label on it. Emotion is emotion, intelligence is intelligence. Just honor them as two separate people and stop trying to fucking control it like we do with relationships and put them in the same box and tell us they're the same thing. They're not. So to me, one last talk, I think, is probably 5 or 10 years ahead of the curve in terms of their real stories about people's lives, not about what people think of the world, about politics, about global warming, and that. It's about your story. And I think it's very powerful. And I would encourage anyone that's listening to this today is to sit down and write your one last talk. If you had 15 minutes on this earth to give your one last talk to your family, to your kids, to your community, to the world, what would you actually say? What would you actually say? What it'll do is it'll help you with self-awareness and understanding who you are. It'll help you with legacy if you choose to document it and give it to your children or leave it with your will. And number 3 is there's no reason why you shouldn't give your one last talk in some environment somewhere in the world. That's my personal belief.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even the thought of that makes me want to tear up. Like thinking about doing that myself. Maybe I'll do that today. Actually, I'm going to do that today.
And maybe revisit, know that your one last talk today would probably be different than maybe a year from now. And what you'll find is it'll go deeper and deeper and deeper, and you'll become more courageous in your possibility of vulnerability and your vulnerability and your philosophies, which I think are those, I think real friendships, real connection is where you can share vulnerabilities and philosophies. It's not all about the weather and this golf and soccer and whatever. And I think what you'll find is if you revisit your one last talk, it'll go deeper. And also write a one last letter. That's even a simpler, cooler exercise. Is actually, if you were to write one letter, one page, who would you write it to and what would you say?
Oh, that's a good one. Can you write it to yourself?
Absolutely.
I would write it to myself.
Absolutely.
I like it. That's good.
Your one last letter, what would you, and we're creating a whole framework to help people extract this in a way that's truly authentic to them. So watch this space.
Okay. Amazing. Philip, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks.
You're a bloody firecracker, I tell you.
I don't know. I mean, what you see now is not the current person. I mean, I think I'm just showing up more and more as myself. And I know some people don't like it. And quite frankly, I think I'm done. I'm not done, but I think I'm letting go of being concerned about that. All I know is I spent, 38, 39 years trying to be anybody else. And for the rest of my life, I'm going to be, not the best or the greatest version of who I am, but I'm just going to try and be the most real and authentic version of who Philip McKernan is.
I love it. It shines and you're impacting the world. And it's so cool. I mean, over the last couple years, cause when I first met you at One Last Talk, I was like, who's this guy? Who's Philip McKernan? And over the last 2 years, man, you've just and that's based on you and your work and the impact that you're having in people's lives. So thank you so much for showing up and doing this work for people.
Thank
Incredible.
you. Appreciate that.
So I guess the next time I'll see you is in Ireland, probably.
I hope so. We might break the rules and share Guinness together.
Oh my God, we totally have to do that. I'm Irish. You're Irish. Come on, it's got to happen.
100%.
All right, Philip, thank you so much, and we'll catch you soon.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode on the Hungry for Happiness podcast. You can join the conversation with women just like yourself at hungryonfacebook.com. Until next week, ladies, stay classy and badassy.